Ava Monroe waited outside the preschool gates, arriving early to collect her daughter, Lily. The afternoon sun spilled across the playground, but a chill clung to her skin as she searched the crowd of children. When Lily finally appeared, pigtails bouncing, Ava's heart lifted, only to plummet when the little girl recoiled from her outstretched arms. "I don't want you to pick me up. I want Jenna to come." Lily's words cut like shards of ice. Ava froze, forcing a smile. "Jenna? You mean Jenna Blake?" "That's right. Daddy said it's your fault Jenna can't be my mom. I hate you." Lily's small face twisted with anger. For a moment, Ava couldn't breathe. Jenna Blake. The name rattled inside her skull. She had thought Jenna was gone for good. "Sweetheart, let's go home and talk," she said gently, swallowing the ache rising in her throat. She reached for Lily's hand. "Let me go. I'm not going with you." She kicked and flailed, her shrill cries drawing glances from nearby parents. A woman with a stroller gasped, pulling out her phone. Minutes later, 2 police officers strode toward them, faces grim. "Ma'am, someone reported a possible child abduction. May we see your identification?" Hands trembling, Ava produced her ID and marriage certificate, her pulse roaring in her ears. She prayed the documents would clear everything up. But when the officers checked their system, confusion darkened their expressions. "According to our records, you're listed as single. The registered parents for this child are Daniel Monroe and Jenna Blake. We'll need you to come with us." The words struck like lightning. Ava's mind went blank. Lily wasn't only Daniel's daughter, she was listed as Jenna's too. After questioning, the officers released her. Ava stumbled out of the station. Moving without direction, her heart flayed open. The world around her blurred, only the echo of Lily's rejection remained. She drove home in a haze, parking outside the stone-fronted house she had built a life inside. Before she stepped in, voices floated from the living room. "Dan, I heard Jenna isn't really dead. She came back from Europe, is that true?" Ava stiffened. "Yeah, I let my parents think she'd passed. Easier than telling them I couldn't let her go." The room erupted with laughter. "And Ava, you planning to divorce her?" "Why would I? Sure, at first I didn't think I'd fall for her, but she keeps the house perfect, handles Lily like a pro, she makes life easy. And Jenna, she's been through hell. I can't let her go back to scrubbing floors." A ripple of admiration ran through his friends, praising him for how well he'd trained his wife. From a shadowed corner, a voice sliced through the warmth. If Ava knew the daughter she raised wasn't even hers, that her own baby was stillborn and tossed out like garbage, would she still stay? Silence froze the room. Daniel's eyes narrowed, warning flickering across his face. "She'll never find out," he said coldly. Outside the doorway, Ava clutched the frame, shaking. Tears burned hot trails down her cheeks. It was true. Her child had died long ago, discarded. Lily, the little girl she loved with every breath, belonged to Daniel and Jenna. Her lips parted, but no sound emerged, just a low sob. She turned and fled, driving aimlessly until her phone buzzed with messages. "Ava, I postponed a meeting and bought your favorite creme brulee for our anniversary. Can't wait to surprise you. I also got you a special gift. You'll love it. We both will." She stared at the words, laughter and grief colliding inside her. Daniel had always played the perfect husband. Dinners under fairy lights, midnight trips to see meteor showers, even a private cabin in Alaska when she'd mentioned wanting to watch the aurora. When she'd been pregnant, he'd hovered through every appointment, every craving. He claimed his late-night absences were pilgrimages to Jenna's grave, a farewell before starting anew. But now the truth was laid bare. There had never been a goodbye, only secret reunions. For years, Ava had lived inside an illusion. Tonight, the curtain had been ripped down. She steadied herself, wiping tears from her chin. Pulling out her phone, she made a call. A warm, familiar voice answered, trembling with excitement. "Ava? Finally! I've been waiting so long. How are you?" Her jaw tightened. "I'm not calling to reminisce," she said, voice steady despite the storm inside. "I need 2 favors. Don't mistake this for forgiveness." A pause. "Name them. If I can, I'll do it." "First," Ava said, staring at the dark horizon, "help me stage an accident I want to disappear from Daniel's life forever." "What?" the voice on the other end faltered. "Ava, you've loved Dan more than anyone. Are you sure?" She didn't answer right away. A single tear slid down her cheek as she whispered her second request. "Find out what really happened when I gave birth." Silence stretched. Then came a quiet, steady reply. "All right, I'll look into it. And I'll handle the other thing too. Just don't lose yourself before we finish this." When she ended the call, the night felt heavier, but clarity, faint and cold, settled inside her. By the time Ava pulled into the driveway, the windows of the house glowed warm against the darkness. She slipped inside, trying to compose herself. Daniel appeared from the hallway, Lily perched on his hip. "Where have you been?" he asked, concern laced with irritation. "You're late." He set their daughter down and took Ava's bag, scanning her face. "Your eyes are red. Who upset you?" His voice softened, coaxing, as he dabbed at her tears with the tissue. "Tell me, sweetheart." Memories flickered like an old reel, Daniel comforting her after her boutique failed, holding her through the nights she doubted herself. Back then he'd promised she could rest easy as his wife, that he would shield her from every storm. Later, when pregnancy left her weak and her career stalled, he'd urged her to stay home, saying all she needed to do was look after him and Lily. She had poured herself into that life. She bought hypoallergenic bedding because both Daniel and Lily were sensitive to dust mites. She scrubbed every corner, cooked allergy-safe meals, memorized every ingredient so Lily's food would be perfect. For years, she believed she was living a dream marriage. But looking now at Lily, those eyes, unmistakably Jenna's, Ava felt something deep in her splinter. All those tender moments had been a story she told herself to survive. She forced a small smile. "No one upset me. I went to the beach. A sandstorm blew in and irritated my eyes," she lied lightly. Her gaze shifted toward Lily, who lingered near the stairs, clutching a small object. Unease flickered across the child's face, mixed with jealousy. Ava's chest ached. She knew Lily wasn't her flesh and blood, yet years of tucking her in, wiping her tears, celebrating her birthdays, had built a love too tangled to name. She stepped closer, meaning to hug her. But a sharp sting ripped across her palm. Lily had slashed her with the tiny folding knife she'd been hiding. Bright red spread fast across Ava's hand, dripping onto the polished floor. A strange glimmer crossed Lily's face, half satisfaction, half defiance. "It's your fault," she shrieked. "Daddy was going to take me to see Jenna tonight, but you ruined it. You're a mean stepmom. Just go away." Ava stared at the wound, numb. A memory flashed, Lily at 2 years old clinging to her neck, crying after learning people could die. "I don't want Mommy to die," she'd sobbed then, tiny fists balled against Ava's chest. And now, only days after Jenna's return, that same child looked at her with hatred. Before Ava could speak, Lily dropped to the ground, wailing, "Daddy! Mom pushed me! My back hurts! Take me to the doctor!" Startled, Ava turned. Daniel stood in the doorway, unnoticed until now. The instant Lily saw him, she leapt into his arms, burying her face against his shoulder. A smear of Ava's blood streaked the girl's cheek, whether by chance or intent, Ava couldn't tell. Against Lily's pale skin, it looked shocking. Daniel's face drained of color. "Lily, are you hurt?" "Daddy!" Lily sniffled dramatically. "My head hurts so much. Mom said I make her miserable. I'm scared. Will she hit me again?" Daniel's expression hardened, anger overtaking concern. "Ava, how could you shove her? If you're upset, talk to me. Don't take it out on a child." The rebuke sliced through Ava, leaving her breathless. That face, once tender, always protective, now looked at her with nothing but accusation. She remembered when even a mosquito bite on her arm had made him frantic. He'd once ordered pest control drones after she complained of itching. Now her hand bled, and he didn't even glance at it. Without another word, Daniel lifted Lily and strode out, his tone clipped. "Stay here for a few days. Think about what you've done." The door slammed, the sound echoing through the empty hall. Ava stood by the window, watching his figure disappear into the night. A bitter smile tugged at her lips. Days crawled by before they returned. Ava spent the time quietly, her packed suitcase hidden in the wardrobe. When Lily entered, she scowled. "Dad, I don't want to see her. I just want Jenna." Ava's lips twitched into something between a smile and a wound. Of course, they'd been together these last few days, forgetting she even existed. Daniel dismissed the servants and faced Ava. "I heard you've been upset," he said. "Jenna isn't dead. She came back from Florence and ran into Lily at the clinic. She stayed with her for a while. Don't read too much into it. We're just friends. Family, even." Ava almost laughed at his serious tone. Friends? Friends who appear on a birth certificate? But she said nothing, letting him take her hand. He turned it over, inspecting the pink scar left by Lily's knife. Concern softened his eyes. When did you get this? Does it hurt? The gentleness twisted Ava's stomach. He played the part so well. I was harsh the other day, he murmured. I shouldn't have yelled after Lily fell. Let me get more ointment. No need, she said coolly, pulling back. It's healed. He hesitated at her chill, then offered a box with a small smile. Inside lay a delicate set of champagne-colored silk sleepwear, light as mist. Ava's stomach turned. She folded the garment neatly and set it aside. Daniel's brow furrowed. In the past, even if she disliked a gift, she'd feign delight. Lily is older now, she said quietly. Maybe we should be more discreet. Daniel sighed and left the room. Just as he reached the door, his phone rang. Ava glanced up. On the screen glowed a single name. Jenna. Daniel's face shifted as he glanced at the glowing screen. Something urgent came up, he muttered, sliding the phone into his pocket. Get some rest, Ava. Don't wait up. Before she could reply, he was already grabbing his keys, leaving only the faint scent of his cologne in the room. Ava sat motionless on the edge of the bed, the silence pressing down on her. Then she rose, her movements slow but certain. She slipped on a dark jacket and followed his car at a careful distance through the sleepy streets. He finally turned into the gated drive of the house she had never seen before. The garden lights illuminated a glass-walled conservatory at the back. From where she stood, hidden by a tree, Ava saw Jenna reclining on a sofa inside, draped in sheer ivory fabric that clung to her curves. Her expression was a carefully painted picture of fragility. Daniel rushed to her, throwing off his jacket to wrap around Jenna's shoulders. Don't wear this here. If someone saw us, it would ruin everything. Jenna's lips curled faintly. Why not? Didn't you give the same thing to Ava? How could she ever compare to you? His words were thick, hungry. This was meant for you. He pressed kisses along her neck. Jenna, trembling, pushed him back slightly, tears shining at the corners of her eyes. Dan, what do you take me for? Another woman desperate enough to sell herself like Ava once did? Tell me, what are we really? Of course we're husband and wife, he murmured against her skin, the phrase a dagger to both Jenna's heart and Ava's ears. Jenna collapsed into his arms, sobbing softly. You're my husband, yet you spend every day with that woman. Even Lily calls her mom. When will we be able to live openly? Do you actually love her? Of course not. If I did, would I have swapped her baby with hers and thrown hers away without even a name? Ava's knees buckled. She caught herself against the tree, the bark biting into her palm. She'd feared the worst, but hearing the confession from his lips crushed something inside her. Daniel, the man who used to rest his hand on her pregnant belly, whispering stories to the life within, who prayed for their baby's health, had discarded her child like rubbish. Her stomach churned. Then Jenna's laughter, wet and shaky, mingled with the sound of kisses and soft sighs. Through the window, Daniel pressed her close, their bodies fused as if the world beyond them didn't exist. Ava's tears blurred the scene. Turning away, she walked back to her car, her steps heavy but precise. She started the engine, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles whitened, and dialed a number. How much longer? She asked, voice like ice. 2 weeks, came the reply. Everything's in motion. Once it happens, you'll be free. After ending the call, Ava exhaled slowly. 2 weeks and she would vanish. No more betrayal, no more lies. When she got home, the villa was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Upstairs, Lily lay fast asleep, her face serene, a faint smile softening her lips. A pang of grief twisted through Ava. If her own child had survived, she might have looked just as peaceful. Her phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. She opened it. A video began to play. Daniel and Jenna, tangled together, kissing with reckless abandon. Another message followed. Miss Monroe, I trust you've seen the truth. Lily is my daughter and Dan is my husband. Be wise and leave us. The arrogance in the text bled through every word. Ava's heart thudded painfully, but anger soon sharpened her thoughts. She typed back without hesitation. If you're so righteous, why hide in the shadows? She powered off her phone before a reply arrived. The next 5 days stretched endlessly. Daniel claimed he was away on business, texting affectionate notes, pretending normality. Ava responded sparsely, keeping up the illusion. Her plan required patience. Daniel hated losing control. He could discard people, but he couldn't bear being discarded. That was why Ava's escape had to be final, beyond reach. When he finally returned, he carried an ornate gift bag. Look what I found, he said, producing a pale blue dress and pink diamond earrings. Try them. He crouched like a suitor, fastening the earrings with a smile. The gesture might have melted her once, if not for the image still burned in her mind.
Just minutes before, Jenna had uploaded a video flaunting a glittering necklace, the same earrings tossed at her feet as extra spoils, a matching dress draped over a chair. Ava studied Daniel's face, noting every rehearsed line in his smile. He sensed her detachment and set the earrings down. As he reached out to embrace her, Lily burst in, squealing, "Daddy, I missed you!" She inhaled theatrically, then grinned. "You smell like Jenna. Oh, I know. You were with her, right?" Her words landed like knives. Daniel froze, caught off guard. Lily twirled happily. "Jenna sent us so pretty. I love her most. Daddy, when will you marry her so she can be my real mom?" Daniel's shoulders tensed, his lips parting without an answer. The air hung heavy between them. Whether it was guilt or anger, Daniel placed Lily gently on the floor. He tried to steady his voice. "Sweetheart, Ava is your mother. No one else can be. Don't say things like that." He glanced at Ava, his tone smoothing as if nothing had been said. "And oh, Ava," Daniel added, loosening his tie, speaking almost casually, "I need you to introduce Jenna as my assistant at the company celebration. You know how my parents are about her, but if you're the one who presents her, they'll stop resisting." He looked almost hopeful, as though expecting her to agree without thought. Ava felt something inside her twist. He could consider everyone's feelings, Jenna's, his parents', even Lily's, but never hers. He was handing her a dagger and asking her to smile while she turned it inward. The evening of the gala arrived with cool winds sweeping across the city. Ava dressed carefully, choosing a sleek navy gown, her face calm as a still lake. The ballroom shimmered with crystal lights and murmured conversations. Though Ava held the title of Mrs. Monroe, it was clear who owned the room. Jenna entered, silver fringe sparkling across her gown with Lily perched happily on her hip in a miniature replica. Together they looked like an untouchable portrait. Whispers spread like ripples. "Isn't Lily her child? They look alike. I thought Ava was the mother." "No, Jenna's the real love. Ava was just a placeholder. Look how perfect they seem, all three of them." Ava kept her gaze fixed on the stars beyond the windows, the stem of her glass cool in her fingers. From across the hall, Jenna approached, champagne in hand, her smile laced with sweetness and steel. "You see it, don't you?" she murmured, low enough for only Ava to hear. "Dan, Lily, and we're a family. You were only ever filling space." Ava's lips curved into a faint, inscrutable smile. Jenna could revel in her little triumph, but some lines even she dared not cross. "If you're so sure," Ava replied softly, "make the Monroes accept you." She set down her glass and turned to leave, the hem of her gown whispering against the marble floor. She had known Daniel's parents for years, unyielding, conservative, obsessed with propriety. If they'd been willing to approve Jenna, Ava's life with Daniel would never have begun. She was halfway to the doors when Lily's small cry split through the chatter. "Daddy, I'm itchy!" She spun around. Red welts crawled across the child's arms and neck. Panic shot through her. Her mind flashed to the breakfast table that morning, where a jar of peanut butter, something never allowed in the house, had appeared. Without hesitation, she fished a bottle of antihistamine from her clutch and moved toward Lily. "Wait," Jenna said sharply, blocking her path with a gentle but firm hand. A sly curve plated her mouth as she crouched beside Lily. "Honey, tell everyone who gave you food you shouldn't eat." Ava's heart stopped. Everyone knew Lily's allergy could be fatal. Even the smallest amount could trigger disaster. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. She peeked at Ava, then whispered, trembling, "Don't be mad at Mommy. I just wanted a taste." A collective gasp swept the room. All eyes turned to Ava, suspicion thick in the air. She stepped back, stunned. Lily, barely 4, had delivered her line perfectly. A sick realization struck her. Jenna had risked the child's safety to frame her. Daniel's gaze darkened, hardening into judgment. He didn't even pause to question it. "It wasn't me," Ava said raw. "I'd never hurt her." "If not you, then who?" Jenna's tone was honeyed poison. "Who else knows every detail about Lily's allergies?" Murmurs slithered through the hall. How cruel, feeding peanuts to her own kid. She must have snapped seeing Jenna back. Love always wins. A substitute never lasts. The voices pressed in, sharp as broken glass. Ava's throat tightened. "I said it wasn't me," she shouted, clutching the medicine bottle so tightly it cut into her palm. "Dan, look at me. I would never harm her." Daniel's jaw worked. "Enough. We're going to the hospital." He scooped Lily into his arms, Jenna gliding behind them like a victor, leaving Ava rooted to the spot, whispers rising in their wake. She stood in the wreckage of her composure, then quietly exited the ballroom, her steps measured despite the storm inside. Outside, the night air bit at her skin. She wandered the streets until her phone rang. "Ava, everything is ready. You can leave now." Her fingers tightened around the device. That voice was an anchor pulling her from the abyss. She walked back to the house, dismissed the staff, and headed for the study. She placed an envelope on the desk, marked in clean handwriting, "For Daniel, personal." Inside were signed divorce papers and her wedding ring. Next, she phoned the property manager. Her instructions were crisp: remove everything that tied her to the Monroes, matching mugs, wedding photos, gifts, even her own dress from their vows. She opened the closet where her suitcase waited, neatly packed. From a drawer, she drew a stack of pregnancy records, the only proof of the child no one had mourned. She paused at the threshold, taking in the villa one last time. Its walls had once felt like safety, but now only echoed with betrayal. Turning, Ava stepped into the night, leaving her ring and every trace of Daniel behind. Rain misted the windshield as Ava drove away from the house she had once believed was her sanctuary. The suitcase on the seat beside her felt heavier than its weight, packed with clothes, documents, and the last fragile pieces of herself. She parked near the harbor, staring out at the quiet black water. The sky hung low and heavy, swallowing the stars. For a long while, she simply sat there, letting the wipers drag streaks across the gloss. Then she breathed in, steadying her shaking hands. Her plan was set. 2 weeks from tonight, everything would end. The marriage, the lies, the humiliation. Ava Monroe would be gone, and in her place, only a whisper of memory would remain. Back at a modest apartment she'd rented under an alias, she changed into dry clothes, setting the suitcase by the bed. Sleep never came. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel's hands sliding across Jenna's back, heard the laughter, the murmurs.
Morning brought a text from the private investigator. Documents collected. Birth records confirmed there were 2 infants at delivery. Details to follow in person. Ava's pulse quickened. Proof at last. She met the investigator, a gray-haired woman named Ruth, in a small cafe at the edge of town. Ruth laid a sealed envelope on the table. "I found medical notes," she said quietly. "Your baby was alive at birth, Ava. The report says stillborn, but the signature was forged. The second child, healthy, disappeared from the files. I traced an early transfer to a private clinic funded by Daniel's company." Ava's fingers trembled as she pulled out a photocopy, her name on a birth record, crossed out, replaced with another. Tears blurred the page. "So, my daughter was taken," Ruth finished softly. "And Lily's records begin the same day." Ava pressed the papers to her chest, a sound between a sob and a sigh escaping her lips. She had suspected betrayal, but to see the theft of her child written so coldly was another wound entirely. She thanked Ruth, tucking the evidence safely away. There would be time for grief later. By afternoon, Ava was back at the villa, walking in as though nothing had shifted beneath her feet. Daniel greeted her at the door, Lily clinging sleepily to his leg. "You're home early," he said lightly, as if the night at the gala hadn't happened. "I wanted us to start fresh." He offered her a velvet box. Inside lay a thin bracelet, rose gold and glittering with tiny stones. "A peace offering," he added with a charming smile. Ava studied the gift, then looked up at him. He searched her face for warmth, for forgiveness, but she gave him only composure. Later that evening, over dinner, Daniel spoke with easy cheer about upcoming business trips and plans for Lily's birthday. Ava listened, nodding at the right moments, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Inside, though, her resolve hardened. When Lily asked to stay at Jenna's house for the weekend, Daniel hesitated for only a second before agreeing. "He misses you," he told the child. Ava forced her lips into a smile. "Have fun, sweetheart," she said, smoothing Lily's hair. That night, she wandered through the villa's halls, noting the furniture she'd chosen, the curtains she'd sewn by hand. Each item was a relic of a life built on lies. She paused at a photo on the staircase wall, Daniel's arm around her shoulders, Lily perched on his knee, all three smiling at the camera. She remembered the day vividly, how Daniel had whispered that he couldn't imagine life without her, how proud he'd looked holding their daughter. Her chest ached with a mix of rage and mourning. She touched the glass, then turned away. The next morning, Daniel left early, kissing her cheek as if nothing were amiss. Ava watched his car disappear through the gates. When the house was silent, she called Ruth again. "Everything's in place," Ruth reported. "The accident will look authentic. Car submerged off the coastal road. After that, we'll move you to the safe address we discussed." Ava thanked her, her voice steady.
She spent the day preparing in quiet efficiency. She withdrew cash from accounts Daniel didn't know existed, packed a second bag with essentials, and destroyed traces of the investigator's report. That evening, as twilight painted the sky with muted gold, she sat alone on the patio sipping tea. The garden was still, the only sound the fountain's gentle trickle. From the corner of her eye, she saw Lily's favorite toy, an old stuffed fox, lying abandoned under a bench. Ava picked it up, brushing off a smear of dirt. For a moment, she allowed herself to grieve the girl she'd loved, even if Lily wasn't truly hers. She pressed the toy to her heart, then tucked it into her suitcase. By nightfall, she had locked the villa and left through the service gate, blending into the dark street without a backward glance. The first step toward freedom had been taken. But even as she drove toward the small apartment where she would wait out the final days, a quiet question lingered in her chest. When the accident came, would Daniel mourn at all, or simply fold Jenna closer, relieved she was finally gone? Ava spent the next several days hidden away in the rented flat, curtains drawn against the sun. She moved through each hour with quiet precision, her body tense with purpose, even when exhaustion pressed heavy on her bones. The evidence Ruth had uncovered lay sealed in a slim folder on the table, a constant reminder of everything she had lost. Every so often she checked her phone, scrolling past Daniel's cheerful messages, little photos of Lily eating pancakes, emojis hinting at longing, polite questions about when Ava might come home. She answered sparingly, never revealing her plan. Each reply was measured, written as if she was still the same trusting wife. Late one night, a new text arrived, this time from an unknown number. Ava hesitated, then opened it. A photograph appeared on the screen. Daniel and Jenna on a terrace, a bottle of wine between them, his arm draped over her shoulders. Another image followed, Jenna leaning in to kiss him, her eyes half closed. Then a message.
Ava's lips pressed into a thin line. The gall in Jenna's words was almost laughable, but fury hummed beneath her calm. She didn't bother to answer. Jenna thrived on provocation. 5 days later, Daniel returned to the villa with a bouquet of white lilies and a grin carved carefully into place. He called Ava to meet him at the door, presenting a small box tied with a silk ribbon. Inside lay a pair of delicate earrings, pale pink stones set in gold. "They reminded me of you," he said warmly, fastening one to her ear. "I've missed you these past days." Ava held still, even as her stomach nodded. She had seen those earrings already, and Jenna's latest video, where they'd been tossed across a table as trinkets, while Jenna boasted about her treasures. Daniel mistook Ava's stillness for softness. He reached to pull her into a hug, but Lily came running down the hall. "Daddy!" she squealed, jumping into his arms. "You smell like Jenna again." The remark hit like a stone thrown through glass. Daniel froze, caught off guard. Lily giggled, innocent and unbothered. "She always smells so nice. Daddy, when are you going to marry her so she can be my real mommy?" Daniel's mouth opened, then closed, no words coming. Ava watched silently, her face unreadable. That evening, after Lily was tucked into bed, Daniel poured himself a drink and sat opposite Ava in the living room. "She's just a child," he said, trying for lightness. "You know how kids talk." Ava gave a small nod, but said nothing. Daniel shifted, leaning forward. "Listen, about Jenna, she's been helping me with some company matters. My parents still aren't keen on her, but if you'd introduce her properly at the next gathering, they might soften. It would mean a lot." Ava let her gaze rest on him, expression calm as glass. Inside, her mind cataloged every word, every manipulation. Later that night, after Daniel had gone upstairs, Ava sat alone on the sofa. Her fingers traced the rim of a teacup while memories flickered through her head. Daniel's gentle voice during her pregnancy, the promises whispered in the dark, the way he'd watched over her when she'd been ill. All of it was an act, a performance designed to keep her tethered. She rose, went to her suitcase, and checked its contents again. Cash, spare clothes, new identification, Ruth's report, the stuffed fox. The next time she left this house, she would not return. The following afternoon, Daniel drove Lily to Jenna's. Ava watched from an upstairs window, unseen, as Lily skipped toward the waiting car, her laughter bright and clear. Daniel bent to fasten her seatbelt, Jenna leaning across the door with a smile too polished to be anything but calculated. When the car rolled away, Ava felt a strange calm settle over her. The future was narrowing to a single point, the night of the staged crash. That evening, she lit no lights, preferring the hush of dusk. She wandered through each room one last time, fingers brushing over furniture, books, and framed photos. She paused before the grand mirror in the foyer, studying the reflection of a woman who looked steady but carried invisible fractures beneath her skin. She picked up her phone and typed a short message to Ruth. "Ready when you are." A reply came almost instantly. "2 nights. Final run-through tomorrow. After that, everything will be in motion." Ava set the phone aside, drew the curtains, and let herself sink onto the couch. For the first time in weeks, she allowed her body to rest, though her mind stayed sharp.
Soon, the name Ava Monroe would belong to the past, and the woman she was becoming would step into the dark, unbound. Dawn slipped through the blinds of the small flat, pale and quiet. Ava awoke before her alarm, her heartbeat steady despite the storm waiting beyond sunrise. Today was the day. The last thread of her old life would be cut. She dressed simply, dark trousers, a sweater, hair tied back, and packed the few things she intended to keep. Root's folder, spare cash, the small fox that had once belonged to Lily. The rest she left behind, remnants of a name she would soon bury. The second afternoon, Ruth arrived, her expression calm but intent. She handed Ava a set of new documents and a slim phone. "This is the number you'll use once it's over," she explained. "Stay in the safe house until we signal. After that, you'll be free to start again." Ava thanked her quietly, tucking the papers into her jacket. That evening, she drove toward the coastline, headlights sleeping over the empty road. The sky had turned indigo, the sea dark and restless. She parked near a bend where cliffs rose above the water, chosen carefully for its blind curve and loose gravel. Ruth's team was already waiting, their van hidden beyond a cluster of pines. They briefed her one last time, a stage skid, a car rolling into the tide, and a few personal items planted to make the story believable. Ava stood beside her own vehicle, gazing at the waves smashing white against the rocks. Wind tugged at her hair. She thought of all the years spent inside Daniel's web, the promises, the laughter, the soft betrayals threaded through ordinary days. She thought of Lily, bright, stubborn Lily, whose life had been built on secrets she hadn't asked for. For a moment, grief surged so fiercely she almost couldn't breathe. She pressed her hand to her chest, grounding herself. Leaving wasn't an act of cowardice, it was the only way to reclaim what had been stolen from her. She walked back to the car, slipping off her wedding ring. It gleamed faintly in the twilight before she dropped it into the glove box, the last token of their marriage waiting to sink beneath the tide with everything else. Ruth gave a small nod from the shadows. Ava slid into the driver's seat, turned the key, and guided the car forward. The tires screeched as she made the planned swerve, sending the vehicle toward the bluff. At the last moment, she leapt clear, tumbling onto the damp grass as the car crashed through the barrier and plunged into the water below. The roar of impact was swallowed by the sea. Foam churned where the car vanished, then only darkness remained. Ava lay still, catching her breath. When she rose, Ruth was there, helping her into the van. They drove in silence along an unlit track until they reached a secluded cabin tucked behind a stand of furs. Inside, a lamp glowed warmly. Ava set her bag on the table, suddenly aware of the quiet pressing close around her. The absence of Daniel's voice, Jenna's schemes, Lily's small footsteps, it felt at once liberating and unbearably heavy. She sank in a chair, pulling the stuffed fox from her bag. She traced its worn fur, tears sliding unchecked down her face. She didn't know if she would ever see Lily again or if the truth of the child's birth would someday be revealed. For now, Lily belonged to a world Ava had stepped away from. When the tears ebbed, she wiped her eyes and squared her shoulders. She thought of the papers Ruth had given her, a new name, a clean slate. She could carve a life shaped by her own choices, free from Daniel's shadow. Outside, the ocean rumbled faintly, as though echoing her resolve. Ava placed the fox gently on the bedside table, then lay back on the narrow bed. The woman staring up at the ceiling was not the fragile wife Daniel believed he owned. She was someone forged in betrayal, sharpened by survival. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the window, a future waited. Unwritten, dangerous, alive. For the first time in years, Ava let herself drift toward sleep, untethered from every chain that had once held her.